They called him a terrorist. They locked him away for 27 years. And when he emerged, he became the man who saved a nation from civil war. But Nelson Mandela didn't win through force. He didn't win through revenge. He won through something far more powerful, something most people never master in their entire lives. Today, I'm going to reveal the 7 rules of strategic patience that allowed Mandela to always win. And I must tell you this clearly. The 7th rule, the one I'll reveal last, is the most powerful of them all. It's the secret that turned a prisoner into a president and a divided country into a symbol of reconciliation. These aren't just historical lessons. These are rules you can apply today, in your conflicts, in your struggles, in the moments when you feel powerless. So stay with me, because by the time we reach rule number 1, you'll understand why Mandela never lost, even when he had nothing. Let's begin. Rule number 7. Master the language of your opponent. When Mandela entered Robben Island prison in 1964, he did something his fellow prisoners thought was madness. He began learning Afrikaans, the language of his oppressors. While others saw this as collaboration, Mandela saw it as strategy. He studied their poetry, he read their history, he understood their fears. Because here's what most people miss about power: you cannot defeat what you do not understand. Mandela learned that the Afrikaner guards were not monsters. They were men raised on stories of their own suffering, their own historical wounds. And when you speak to someone in the language of their pain, you don't just communicate, you connect. This is rule number 7, but don't mistake its ranking for simplicity. Understanding your opponent is the foundation. Without it, everything else crumbles. But understanding alone is not enough. Rule number 6, convert humiliation into education. Imagine this. You're forced to break rocks in the hot sun. You're given rotten food. You're stripped of your name and called by a number. Most people would let this break them. Mandela let it build him. He turned the quarry into a university. He organized secret lectures among prisoners. Political theory in the morning. Philosophy at lunch. History whispered in the dark. The prison authorities thought they were destroying these men. They were actually forging an entire generation of leaders. Every humiliation became a lesson. Every hardship became a test of character. Where others saw suffering, Mandela saw curriculum. This is the 6th rule. Your worst circumstances are often your greatest teachers, but only if you choose to learn rather than to despair. And still, we're only beginning. Rule number 5, choose your battles with surgical precision. In 1985, the South African government offered Mandela his freedom. All he had to do was renounce violence. After 21 years in prison, most people would have signed anything. Mandela refused. He understood something crucial about negotiation. A compromise made from weakness creates a foundation of sand. He knew that accepting conditional freedom would undermine everything he fought for. So he waited. 5 more years. 5 more years in a cell, because he understood that the right battle, fought at the right time, is worth more than 1,000 desperate skirmishes. This is strategic patience at its most disciplined. Not fighting every fight, not reacting to every provocation, conserving your energy for the moment that matters. Most people exhaust themselves winning small victories. Mandela saved his strength for the war. But patience without direction is just waiting. Which brings us deeper. Rule number 4, transform your prison into your pulpit. Here's something extraordinary. By the 1980s, Mandela had been in prison for over 15 years. He couldn't vote. He couldn't speak publicly. He couldn't even be quoted in newspapers. And yet, he was the most powerful voice in South Africa. How? He understood that influence doesn't require presence. It requires mythology. Every year he spent in prison, his legend grew. Every letter smuggled out became scripture. Every hunger strike became a sermon. The government thought they were silencing him by hiding him away. They were actually elevating him beyond their reach. You cannot arrest an idea. You cannot imprison hope. Mandela turned his absence into presence, his silence into thunder. He wrote letters that moved nations. He mentored younger activists through coded messages. He became more dangerous in a cell than he ever was with freedom. This is rule number 4. Your limitations are only as powerful as you allow them to be. The walls that confine you can become the stage that amplifies you. But influence alone doesn't create change. You need something more. Rule number 3. Weaponize forgiveness. Now we arrive at something most people fundamentally misunderstand about Mandela. They think his forgiveness was weakness. They think reconciliation was surrender. They're wrong. When Mandela walked out of prison in 1990, South Africa was on the edge of a race war. The oppressed wanted vengeance. The oppressors wanted to maintain control. Everyone expected bloodshed. Mandela gave them forgiveness instead, and it was the most strategic weapon he could have chosen. Think about what revenge would have created: a cycle of violence, international isolation, economic collapse, the destruction of the very nation he fought to free. But forgiveness? Forgiveness disarmed his enemies. It denied them the race war they were prepared for. It forced them to negotiate, because suddenly he was offering them something they never expected: a future. This wasn't soft. This was brilliant. By forgiving, Mandela didn't just take the moral high ground. He took the strategic high ground. He made himself impossible to hate, and even more impossible to ignore. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission wasn't just about healing. It was about making sure the old regime couldn't claim victimhood. It was about building a new country on something stronger than revenge. This is rule number 3. Forgiveness is not forgetting. It's choosing a weapon your enemy cannot defend against. We're past the halfway point now, and if you're still with me, you're beginning to see the pattern. These aren't separate rules. They're building blocks, each one supporting the next. And this is where I want to pause for just a moment, because if these ideas are resonating with you, if you're seeing how strategic patience could transform your own life, your own conflicts, I invite you to subscribe. Hit that notification bell. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Because the rules we're about to cover, rules 2 and 1, these are the ones that separate ordinary patience from transformative power. Now, let's continue. Rule number 2, outlast the system. Don't outfight it. Here's what most revolutionaries get wrong. They try to destroy the system through force. They think if they shout loud enough, fight hard enough, sacrifice enough, the walls will come down. Mandela understood something deeper. Systems don't collapse from external pressure alone. They collapse when they exhaust themselves, when they become unsustainable, when they can no longer justify their own existence. Apartheid wasn't defeated in a single battle. It was defeated through 27 years of Mandela simply refusing to break. Every day he survived was a day the system proved itself inhumane. Every year he remained imprisoned was another year the world watched and judged. He didn't have to destroy apartheid, he just had to outlast it. While the government changed leaders, changed strategies, changed tactics, Mandela remained constant. His message never wavered. His dignity never cracked. He became the immovable object against which the unstoppable force of oppression finally shattered. Think about the economics alone. Housing a political prisoner for 27 years while the world watches costs more than money. It costs legitimacy. It costs international trade. It costs the very future of your country. Eventually, the system realized what Mandela knew all along. He was more expensive to keep imprisoned than to free. This is rule number 2, and it's perhaps the hardest to accept because it requires faith in time itself. You must believe that endurance has value, that survival is victory, that simply refusing to give up is sometimes the most powerful action you can take. Mandela didn't win because he was stronger than apartheid. He won because he lasted longer. But there's one rule left, the most important rule, the rule that made everything else possible. If you understand this final rule, you understand not just how Mandela won, but how he transformed winning itself into something the world had never seen before. Are you ready? Rule number 1. Make your enemy need your victory more than you do. This is it. This is the secret that turned a prisoner into a president. And it's so counterintuitive that most people never grasp it. In 1993, South Africa was burning. Political violence was escalating. The international community was preparing for catastrophe. And both sides, black and white, realized they were headed for mutual destruction. Mandela did something extraordinary. He made the white minority government understand that their survival depended on his success. He didn't just demand power. He offered partnership. He didn't just threaten revolution. He promised stability. He made it clear that a South Africa led by him was the only South Africa that could avoid civil war. Think about the genius of this. He transformed the negotiation from "will you give up power" to "will you help me save our country?" When he became president, he kept the same national rugby team, the symbol of Afrikaner pride. He learned their anthem. He wore their jersey. Not because he loved rugby, but because he understood that his former enemies needed to see themselves in the new South Africa. He made his victory their victory. This is the ultimate expression of strategic patience. You wait until the cost of opposing you exceeds the cost of joining you. You create a future where everyone has something to gain from your success. Mandela didn't just defeat apartheid. He made apartheid defeat itself by offering something better. He didn't just win the presidency. He made his opponents campaign for him, in their hearts, because the alternative was too terrible to imagine. This is rule number 1. The highest form of victory is when your enemy chooses to surrender, because you've shown them a path that serves them too. And now, let's look back at everything we've learned. Rule 7. Master the language of your opponent. Understand them before you challenge them. Rule 6. Convert humiliation into education. Let every hardship teach you something your comfort never could. Rule 5. Choose your battles with surgical precision. Not every fight deserves your energy. Rule 4. Transform your prison into your pulpit. Your limitations can become your amplification. Rule 3. Weaponize forgiveness. Deny your enemies the conflict they're prepared for. Rule 2. Outlast the system. Don't outfight it. Endurance is its own form of victory. And Rule 1. Make your enemy need your victory more than you do. Create a future where everyone wins from your success. These 7 rules weren't just political strategy. They were a philosophy of life. Mandela showed us that patience isn't passive. It's the most active choice you can make. It's choosing to plant trees whose shade you may never sit under. In a world that tells you to react, to respond immediately, to fight every battle as it comes, these rules offer something radical. The power of waiting for the right moment and then acting with devastating precision. Mandela always won, not because he was lucky, not because he was more talented, but because he understood time itself as a weapon. He understood that the person who can wait longest, plan deepest, and forgive most completely is the person who shapes the future. So I ask you, what are you fighting right now that you should be outlasting? What opponent do you need to understand better? What humiliation could you transform into education? These aren't just Mandela's rules. They're yours now, too. If this resonated with you, share it. Subscribe. Let's build a community of people who understand that true power doesn't shout. It waits, it plans, it wins. Because in the end, Mandela taught us the most important lesson of all. The person who controls their patience controls their destiny. The person who masters strategic patience doesn't just win battles, they transform the very meaning of victory itself. Thank you for staying with me on this journey. Now go forward with patience, with strategy, and with the understanding that the longest view is often the clearest one. Until next time.